Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about breaking down complex topics, and we always go straight to the source material to do it. So what does it really take to prove the highest crime a person can commit against their own country? We're going to dive deep into that question today by looking at a landmark case from the Philippines back in 1947. And what's wild is that this whole thing doesn't just come down to what a man did, but on a very specific rule designed to protect citizens from the very power that's trying to prosecute them. It's fascinating stuff. All right, let's jump right in. Section 1, an accused traitor. We're going to start with the facts of the case, and it all revolves around one man, Apolinario Adriano, who found himself accused of treason right after World War II. So after the war ended, Adriano gets hit with this massive charge. Treason. And at first, the case against him looks pretty solid. The lower court found him guilty. Why? Well, they said he was an active member of the Makapili. And you gotta understand, the Makapili wasn't just some club. It was an organization set up specifically to aid the Japanese imperial forces. So yeah, on the surface, the evidence looked pretty darn strong. Okay, so Section 2, the crime of treason. Now, you might be thinking, if the lower court found him guilty, what's the big deal? Why did this go all the way to the Supreme Court? Well, to get that, we need to break down what treason actually is in the eyes of the law. It's not just one thing, it's actually made up of two very distinct parts. Okay, so first up, you have something called adherence. Think of this as what's going on inside someone's head, their intent to betray the country, their loyalty to the enemy. And believe it or not, the court was like, yep, we agree. Adriano showed adherence. Just being in the Makapili was enough to prove his state of mind. But, and this is a huge but, there's a second piece to the puzzle, the overt act. This isn't about intent, it's about a physical action, something you actually do to help the enemy. And proving that, well, that's where this whole case gets really interesting. Which brings us to our next section, the two-witness rule. This right here is the heart of the matter. It's this fundamental legal safeguard written right into the law, and man, does it create a high bar for anyone trying to prove treason. Believe it or not, Adriano's entire fate, his whole life basically, came down to this one number, the number 2, and the super specific rule that comes with it. So what is this two-witness rule? It's a constitutional requirement, and it's crystal clear. You cannot convict someone of treason unless you have two witnesses who saw the exact same overt act. Not similar acts, not acts on different days, the same act. This whole idea comes from Anglo-American law, and it was designed from the get-go to be extremely strict. And when I say strict, I mean it goes deep. The court looked at American cases like Kramer v. United States and really drove this point home. They said that every single part of the act, we're talking every movement, every action, every single word, has to be backed up by two witnesses. You can't just take one witness's story about one thing and another's about something else and stitch them together. It just doesn't work that way. All right, Section 4, the Supreme Court decides. So now we know the rule. How did the Supreme Court take this super strict standard and apply it to the evidence they had against Adriano? Let's dive into the ruling. It all boils down to this one single question. Did the prosecution actually bring forward two witnesses who testified that they saw Apolinario Adriano commit the exact same overt act? And this is where the whole case for the prosecution just falls apart. Look, they had multiple witnesses, for sure. But one person saw Adriano drilling with the Makapilis. Another witness saw him doing sentry duty at the garrison, but on a totally different day. And a third person saw him retreating with Japanese forces. You see the problem? Every single witness testified to a completely separate, distinct act. So the Supreme Court's finding was, well, pretty straightforward. They said, hey, you've got several witnesses, but not a single one of the alleged overt acts was seen by two people. Drilling is one act. Sentry duty is another. Retreating is a third. None of them, not one, met that high constitutional bar. And because of that, because the evidence just didn't meet that incredibly precise standard, the Supreme Court really had no choice. The judgment was reversed. Apolinario Adriano was acquitted. Okay, Section 5, a severely restrictive rule. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds kind of like a legal technicality, right? I mean, why would the law have such a strict, and the court itself called it severely restrictive, rule for the absolute worst crime you can commit? Well, the court gives a fascinating explanation. They basically say this difficulty isn't some accident or a loophole. It's the whole point. The rule was purposely designed to be a massive hurdle to act as a shield for citizens against the huge power of the government. Think about it. Throughout history, the charge of treason has often been used as a weapon by governments to crush their political enemies. And the people who wrote this law, they knew that. They weren't naive. They understood that prosecutions for treason could get nasty, or as they put it, virulent. So they made a conscious choice. They decided to make conviction hard, not just in spite of the difficulties, but because of them. It's a safeguard. So what's the big takeaway here? The legal doctrine that comes out of this case is crystal clear. The two-witness rule means that two people have to testify to the whole of the same single overt act of treason. No exceptions. It's an absolute constitutional firewall designed to stop prosecutions that are politically motivated or just don't have solid evidence. And that leaves us with a pretty powerful question to chew on, right? When is a legal safeguard more important than a conviction? The story of Appolinario Adriano is this incredible reminder of that very delicate and very important balance between justice for the nation and the liberty of every single individual.